Hi, this is Ron Moorhead. You're listening to Hastings County Sasquatch.
I'm a member of red squatching, and I've also done some work with international hominology. So primarily my focus is working with red squatching and with Barry and Dee up in the Omaha red. But I have the Nox Gigas Study is my website, and that's where I have primarily all of my research, and it's kind of a repository for everything, so people could go there. But I've been doing this type of field research for over 10 years and had an interest in this, over 40 years ago as a kid. So it's been a long time interest and just kind of a passion as far as the research side. I've had a lot of experiences early on. I went on expeditions. I was in with the first expedition in Nebraska here on the BFRO, and that got me connected to a lot of people. And then once I got connected with Barry, that really just kind of hit with me as far as the research style that we had approached, being more humbled and faith-based in our interactions. We don't use any weapons or anything. And so we really started making some real progress that way. So that's kind of where I've been doing the last 10 years, is just with red squatching and focusing on the interactions that we have up on the Omaha Red.
I think the main reason I heard you on another podcast is we got to get Richard on here. Some of the observations that you guys describe out in the field are pretty much the same as what's going on here in Ontario. Not that much of a difference, really, except for I think a lot of people are misidentifying things such as eye shine when actuality is eye glow. And I'll just tell you from last year's expedition at a particular spot in Ontario, it looked like somebody was coming through a forest with the old school filament bulb Rayovac D-cell flashlight coming in between the trees and everything. I had to stop and think, is somebody's coming through the woods with a flashlight? What's going on here? We're out in the middle of nowhere. Shouldn't be anybody out here. So sounds a lot similar to what's going on down there, down your neck of the woods there.
Yeah, what can you say about that? I haven't had any reports of eye shine yet for me specifically in Hastings County, but we're hoping that
Eye glow.
eye glow. That's right. So what can you say?
That is something I've had a lot of experience with. And early on, I had experiences with a lot of people were calling eye shine, and that eye shine is typically just a reflection of light that you'll see. Yeah. So either there's ambient light or something that's being reflected out of those eyes. This is very different, and as far as I'm aware, it's unique to these hominids. And and the term we like to use is eye glow, because it is a form of what I believe to be bioluminescence. Back in 2012, I was on an expeditions in Iowa, and there was a speaker there that really kind of tied a lot of this together with some photographs that they have, and was looking at more of the mechanism of how that. He was Dr. Tom Rue, who was a physicist, and he suggested, if you want me to kind of go into the science of it, I could kind of tell you what he was proposing as a mechanism for eye glow.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so essentially, this is one of the things, and even Dr. Meldrum, when he was up on the Omaha with Barry and I back in 2017, I proposed this to him, and his thought on it is what a lot of people usually think, is that how would they be able to see with lights shining out of their eyes?
Yeah.
So you have to put some context to that and understand it and what this would be scientifically how it would work. So what would happen is what this Dr. Rue had proposed is there would be what's called photophores in the sclera, which is the light part of your eye. And a photophore is a light emitting organ. And we typically have seen these in like deep sea type of squid or fish that are in the deep ocean. And that is very common to see that sort of thing be photographed. And so that light emitting organ, whether it's a few organs or many, we have to still do some more photographs of that to see it better. But I do believe that is the mechanism. The other thing that what I found out is that not only the Scalera, the white part, but as I've been doing research with this, Steve Moon, who was the expedition leader in Iowa at that time, he had done a lot of photographs of this, and the photographs that he has taken, he sees it coming out of the iris also. So I think it's coming out of both. Those photophores are coming out of both the sclera and the iris. And in that case, in the iris, I believe you're able to focus it. So when you're talking about seeing that flashlight kind of walking through the woods, that would be they would be looking as they're going, and that light would be projecting out and focused. So how that would work then is this photophore would be the light emitting organs. You would have that in the eye. You would then have layers of reflecting lenses that would reflect that light out. You would have lenses ahead of that would also project the light in the directions that you need to go. And behind that, you would have a layer of chromatophores, which would absorb light so it wouldn't go out or wouldn't come back into the eye.
Yeah.
So you would have layers of these lenses that would direct the light, that would also a layer that would control the color of the light. One of the things that's interesting with this bioluminescent eye glow is that they have the ability to change the colors of these of their eyes. So we've seen it like amber color, we've seen red, green, blue. We've seen a variety of these different colors. I think they could do the whole primary color spectrum. When you're thinking of just primary colors, I believe they can do that. And so that would all be controlled through like your central nervous system. They would have a mechanism to control it that way. And also you would be able to do this sort of looking and focusing, and that light would be able to shine out and focus, and you would see it similar like an LED light. It would also be able to change colors. So in that way, it would make sense that that's how it's being used. I think that's from more photographs of this and a lot more documentation in the past 10 years. So I am convinced. I did a show with Sibylla Irwin that she had documented a experience up in Canada, and I can't remember where it was at, but if you go to Sibylla Irwin's channel on YouTube, she has a really good show on eye glow. She had documented this, and at the Scalera part, it shows very well how the light's coming out. So she's like just an amazing artist. And with lack of some of the photographic evidence, her artwork really is amazing to help project what people could see in this situation. So I would encourage people to take a look at that, Sibylla Irwin's work. But she did, the last show that I did, she did allowed us to use some of her drawings that she has. And we have, on my website, I have photographs also. You can go look at those of eye glow. And it's absolutely bioluminescence. It's got these photophores, these organs. I believe that's the mechanism. So I think there's science there that supports that. And in the last 10 years, we've documented enough of it that I can absolutely say it's a biological mechanism that they're doing. And I think that's what you saw when you're talking about the flashlight incident. That's exactly that's what people will be seeing. And a lot of times, if you're out, we typically operate more in the dark than a lot of people are comfortable doing. And I imagine in bear country, you're not that comfortable without having any lights on at all. But if you don't have lights on at all, it is much more evident to see this sort of thing. They will peek around trees. you can see this sort of light. You might just see one eye instead of both of them. And that's typically what you'll first kind of see, like, is that just kind of a light out there? What's going on? And as you watch it, you might see two peaking, or it might change colors. It might raise in height from, like close to the ground to maybe another 6, 7 feet higher. You'll see that sort of thing going on. And I mean, that's very common in those experiences. And a lot of times they'll just be checking you out. So, that's been my experience, and that's something we see a lot with res squatching. And I think Barry just reaching out to us, so maybe we can get him on the line now.
Okay.
So do you think they might change colors of these, of their eyes?
Yes.
In terms
yes, we've seen them.
Just, would they be able to see in different, like, spectrums almost? Is that what you think they're doing? Or?
Hey, Barry, it's Chris and Daryl.
Not too bad. Are you guys ready to start?
Oh, we already started. We're waiting for you to join up.
We're going now.
All right. How do I sign in?
Yeah, by all means.
Well, you're being recorded now. We're just we can keep going from here.
We'll fix it up. And we're being joined by Barry Webster. I know you're a little busy over there, but I appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast.
So did you want to why don't we just go right into Barry then? So, Richard, if you don't mind. Barry, why don't you start with telling us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Hey guys, the volume's pretty low. Hello?
Hello. Can you hear us okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got the volume up now.
Okay, good.
Perfect. Okay, so Barry, thanks for coming on, joining us. We already started with Richard. We're going into some pretty interesting things that he's been covering. You guys have been working together in the past. Why don't you start with what you're working on, how you guys got together and all that stuff. And,
all right, I'll get started, fellas.
Any insights towards these beings and what can you tell us?
Well, I think honestly, I started about 30 plus years ago. Just living on my homeland, knowing that Situnga has always been a big part of our culture, and I don't even want to say folklore, because our people hold them in high esteem. So every time we're in their area, we always kind of it's almost like people watch out for bears. We've always had the stories and I would say the legends. With us, it's more about we know they existed and they're always I would say lurking, so to speak. So 30 years ago, I was always what I would call squatching as I think about it,
Right.
30 plus years ago. So I think the last 15 years is when we finally got serious about it. It started out as a challenge from my son, Rex, who said, Dad, why don't we go out there? Why don't we take this serious, These finding Bigfoot guys can't seem to find nothing, so let's go see what we can find out. So again, 15 years ago, it started out as a challenge from my son. The rest has been history. Me and Rich, we met about, Rich, help me out here, about 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, it's probably been close to 10 years, yeah. We've been
10 years,
okay. 8 to 10 years. Yeah, the years go by.
Yeah. So the rest has been history, fellas.
Were you guys back out in the doing a camp out or out on the lands there last weekend? Did you have anything interesting to report?
Oh yeah, Rich, you care to share? You care to share a story?
Well,
that I told you.
Yeah, go for it. Tell them about that because I think that's very interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to have you tell it because I'm kind of eating a banana right now, but I can. I might be part monkey, man. I don't know.
Might be part Bigfoot.
No. No, I'll tell one. My brother Derek, he has him and his wife own quite a bit of property. So we do a lot of squatching on their property, and which happens to be, some of our best hot spots. So we did a camp out. We had a couple visitors from out of town. So we set up camp. And guys, I'm one of those guys that don't like to report just the minor stuff, to try and make a story. Because I hear enough of it on all over the world. People are trying to either impress me or send me stuff, or it just gets monotonous after a while. So if you understand where I'm coming from, I just don't like to report anything,
Yeah, I mean, us either. We don't like just any little thing. We have to kind of vet it first and go over it. If it doesn't sound good, we don't report it.
Okay. So my good friend and good team member, Connie, she was gracious enough, like always, to loan us a tent. And, so me and Derek, we took that tent. I would say around 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, I had to relieve myself. So I got up, and mind you, this place is very creepy, man. I as long as I've been doing it, I had these second thoughts about, man, should I crawl out of this tent? And, I got this scared feeling, and I get that once in a while, but it doesn't really stop me. So I got up, relieved myself, got back in the tent, and the tent was kind of small, but I liked it because it was warm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got comfortable, and all of a sudden, maybe an hour later, I couldn't really tell you what time it was, but my feet were up against the tent door. Kind of, you could see my foot, the bottom of my tread tracks, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I was snugged up there nice and tight with my feet, vertical up against the tent door. And it's almost, how can I describe it? It was almost like in a dead sleep, I felt something putting pressure on the top of my foot, like pressing it in a dorsiflexion, or how an athletic trainer, how they get cramps out of people.
Yeah.
And that pressure was so strong that if I didn't pull my foot back, I think, it probably would apply enough pressure to cause maybe some damage to my Achilles or something. Cause I remember feeling that pressure so strong, like, what the heck is going on? In a dead sleep, I sat up, kind of cussed at my brother, said, what the fuck? I said, I sat straight up like a sit up out of nowhere, and I said, what the fuck are you doing? And he was sound asleep. He was on his side of the tent. So what I think happened is he stepped right by my feet as they're up against the tent door. And as he stepped, he must have been turning the corner around the tent on what I would call the east side front. And I could feel this pressure coming down on me. And I thought, holy cow, I better back up here, pull my foot back. Otherwise, there's going to be some damage. And I sat up, pulled my foot back, cussed at my brother. And then I realized, wait a minute, that wasn't there. And so something had to step right next to my right foot and somehow applied pressure, because it felt like it was the side of his ankle, maybe.
Okay.
And the pressure was so strong that it woke me up out of a dead sleep. And if I didn't pull back, I don't know what would have happened, So that kind of freaked me out. Then finally just shrugged it off and said, well, all right, I just kind of played it off and laid back down, finally went back to sleep. And what I noticed next is our tent cover got unhooked and was slowly, somebody had to be pulling it off, because it was going, until it got pulled off completely. So something pulled our tent cover off, which I have to tell you that I know it was a sitonga. They were messing around our camp.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really interesting, especially the pressure that was applied, to my right foot. That was interesting to say the least.
And did you hear anything walking away or at that point when you regained consciousness?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could kind of. I don't know that I'm so used to it, but I did know this, that I could hear things, but you're just so tired, you kind of play it off and not worry about it. You're so tired. Now, moving on today, the second night, I thought I was surrounded by one of our team members was, her saying, Barry, I think she was saying they're around us. So it woke me up, and I could hear huffing, and I could hear like foot stomps, like a bluff charge. So I think they were actually, surrounding us, or they were about 50 yards away from camp, kind of while giving the bluff charges and trying to scare us off. Now that I did hear very clearly, and one other team member was just, well, she was a visitor. She was actually pretty startled by it. I don't think she went to sleep for about a couple hours. I heard it, but I figured, well, I was used to it. They're not going to hurt us. I could just hear them kind of taking a stance, like probably not real happy with us. At the same time, I don't think we were in any kind of danger,
Was there any fear felt? You didn't feel any fear? You're just so used to it, there's no fear now?
Yeah, well, I feel that, that's always got to be in back of somebody's mind that, wow, what the heck, man. Mm-hmm. So I felt a little bit of it, but then after a while, I think I'm just used to it. I slowly fell back to sleep and said, hey guys, I got to get some rest, man.
Uh-huh.
Now we were talking to Richard earlier about the eye glow. You guys get a lot of that too all the time.
Oh yeah. I think we kind of. I'll say this. I think we've kind of been the first group, at least from what I see, that can get it on pretty regular basis. We've got 1,000 on the hot spot, so don't really see any other groups do that.
Nope.
In terms of the different types that they say are out there, do you guys think that there's this particular type that has the eye glow ability, or can they all do it, or why don't they all do it?
Well, that's a good question. All I can do is answer based upon my experiences.
Of course.
And I think ours are more of a interaction mode. I call them, where they're just trying to make contact and understand, and which leads to deeper answer. I really think, and unless you can come prove me wrong, I think they're just interacting with us, based on, a couple factors, and that is reconnecting based on what our ancestors used to do with them. Mm-hmm. And then it obviously has to do with the spiritual side of it, through prayer. So, and I realize, that's not everybody's forte, and that, some people, don't have that approach. So I think it's based on those two things. I think with it always, majority of the time, I think they're white, I call it the flashlight look. Mm-hmm. And I think that's more of a friendly kind of, we trust each other,
Right.
Okay. Well, is there any theories in terms of the color of the eyes? It just does, for example, I guess we're kind of conditioned to think the red eyes are dangerous or evil or angry. Is that what you guys are experiencing? Or when you see red eyes, do you have a weird experience at that time when the red eyes are there or no?
Yeah, a couple of times I've witnessed the red eye shine, and I would say this because I'm pretty, what would you say, cognizant of those things,
Mm-hmm.
When they say boots on the ground, I like that term because, at the end of the night or the investigation, we like to debrief, and a lot of times you can see patterns, you just learn from the patterns, and there were several times when we had visitors that weren't what I would call, in the right frame of mind. That's when it seemed like they were upset, the red eye shine came because of the individuals that were with us. They were maybe under the influence, or that's my theory. And I've seen them in the blue. I've seen probably all the colors that people talk about, but most of the time, I think our interaction is more spiritual through prayer and through our language.
Barry, I have to ask you, your tribes way back in the past, did you guys used to trade with the Sasquatch or Satanga?
Absolutely. In fact, probably the greatest teachings I got was from the elders. And, I was one of those guys who wanted to find out for myself. But then, if you listen, and humble yourself, that was probably some of the greatest advice I received from our elders. And one of those, I would say, values or principles, that was really impacting was prayer alone. Then we also have, and then I always call it, as you white folks say, a competitive advantage. I think that's what we have as Native people. I wholeheartedly believe that they understand what we're saying.
Uh-huh.
I think Rich can attest to that. Anybody that's on our team can attest that they understand what I'm saying, and it's something that they knew for centuries, I would say. Yeah.
I'll also ask you guys about the where do you guys usually set up camp? Do you set up near structures or arches and stuff like that? And if you do, does it get a positive or negative reaction if you're camped in a certain area?
Well, we usually, our base camp is usually in cabin. Sometimes that's always a calm, peaceful feeling. But again, I always, based on my experience now, I always think it's the people that we're with that determine how to react.
Yeah, I think you're onto that because I've noticed that too. If you're in an area and you send out positive vibe, that you'll get a better interaction with them. I also notice when people are kind of anxious around let's say a campfire, as you go on, like the second night or something, where everybody was sort of more relaxed, chilled, and we sort of ignored like some of the tree knots and the stumps and everything, or the stomps on the ground that they sort of came in closer when we just sort of ignored them.
Yeah. What if I told you a bold statement?
Go for it.
I probably had some of the greatest interactions face to face ever in the history of squatching. Is that bold enough for you?
Yes.
Sure.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, by all means.
Rich, can you back that up?
Absolutely. Yeah. Barry has had, I don't even know how many literal face-to-face interactions. And a lot of times it might be in just limited light, but even under a full moon, that sort of thing, you could still see them very well. And he has interacted with many of them, different ages, even from very young ones to elders in the community, in the clan. So yes, I can vouch for that. Absolutely.
Let me say this, because I'm not asking for anybody to sing my praise. I hope that in our quest, our journey, we wanted the truth, and maybe I'm jumping way ahead of myself here, or maybe this banana is just making my blood sugar go high. I'm talking goofy here. But I'll say this though, that I'm not interested in having anybody sing my praises, because I believe from a spiritual perspective, I believe that the more humble you are, the more understanding. And if that implies, why I've had such face-to-face encounters, then so be it, But if somebody wants to come and say, he's full of it, hey, that's fine. I think we do too much of that to ourselves in this Bigfoot world,
I agree, and I've spoke to other folk in the First Nations community, and I asked them the question: did you have like a spiritual enlightenment with the Creator or with Jesus Christ, or were you born again Christian or something like that? And it seems to be most of the people that I've heard from, yes, they've seen him several times. There might be some sort of spiritual connection there, which has something to do with them showing themselves a little more often.
Oh, I agree. I think most of the times in what I would call deep prayer or when the Holy Spirit, takes over, that I've had some weird things, and I don't claim to be a medium or nothing. I'm just a God-fearing man, as they say. And, I really come to this belief that maybe some of those blessings, as I call them, hang on. No, I really believe that, again, I can't take no credit for this. It's really been, honestly, as I think about it, it's really been about God and my closeness and the humility, that you show. And I owe it to God, some of the encounters I've had. And when I say bold statement, I really mean, in a humble way, I'm just telling you, the truth, and again, sometimes I get irritated by, the pissing matches that go on,
Oh yeah.
When I can tell you that I brought some, what they self-proclaimed high-profile Hollywood researchers have come to my homelands and put their tail between their legs,
And then go back on their own show and say it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And I don't hold no grudges. I guess for me, and Rich, I guess, pull my reins back if you would, but, I think our journey is pretty much close to an end, very close to an end, in our search for the truth.
Let me ask a question. When you guys, maybe two questions. Have you experienced the mind speak? And if you have, what language is it in?
Well, I don't know that it's in a particular language more than one time. Rich, are you still there, brother?
Yes. Yep.
I think there's times when we're in a small group that we all kind of sense the same thing. I don't know that I've heard a voice, but I can tell you that we all feel the same thing. One of us will say, hey, I don't think we're supposed to go any further, there's several times, Rich, that I think we've all had mind speak, but didn't even know it happened. Would you agree with that, Rich?
Yeah. I think there's a sensory component to it, that whether they call it mind speak, but it's a form of communication, whether it's energy or whatever it is. We've all been there, and we get the same message essentially.
I got one other question for you, gents. Was the topic of counting coup? We have one listener out there, and she knows who she is, where she had one come up and almost like run her over, but didn't harm her, but came incredibly close to, like within 10, 12 feet. And
let me say that was the weekend after we had visited.
Exactly.
And this lady drives a large truck, and she was going out in the morning to get her run started and charged past her. Almost, she went down and covered her neck like to protect herself from a bear, because she wasn't sure, and then she realized after it went past, and it had gone by in two legs and just charged past her. I think she thinks as a message, like, hey, don't screw around with us like you guys did last week.
Or perhaps maybe you guys can expand on the counting coup. Is it a way of showing how brave they are? Is there a reason behind it? Either one of you guys, please comment on it.
Rich, you want to go?
I could comment on the experience I had, and that was back in October. And I think we've had these kind of things happen before. I just never put it in this context of counting coup. That was somebody else told me about counting coup as being something that they would go out and touch you, and that was kind of a passage for them. And I think that is within the Native American history, and Barry can talk more about that. But we were in an area, it was near our Camp Hard Knocks, we call that, where we recorded four really hard wood knocks. And so it's gotten that name when we're in that area. That's what we call it. And we were standing there. We had seen a lot of activity. It was, I think Barry was in the pickup at the time, but his brother, Dee, and I were standing there, and Peter, and there was this Scott Pace who was visiting us. And we had been watching like iGlow. We had been looking around and hearing them around us. And at one point, one ran right between where the pickup was and where I was standing, and it literally we could hear it. It was like this immense energy, or somebody ran by really quick. And at the time, I was just kind of shocked what happened. But Derek told me he heard it actually touch my coat. And so as I had talked about it, we had realized that it was a part of them feeling, I don't think it was an intimidation thing. I think it was a part of them being more comfortable around us to approach us and to get closer to us. And by touching my coat was a way to, that I felt honored that they felt close enough to me to do that. So it was called counting coup, whether it is or not. That's what we referred it to, but it was a very interesting experience, and I recorded it so you can hear it run by and then hear us talk about it. And then Barry was just getting ready to leave. Terry, one of our members of Sasquatch, who passed away just after Christmas last year, and we had great reverence for him and think about him. But he was there, and you could hear him talk about it also. But he and Barry were leaving. And when they left, there was a wood knock as they were leaving. So that was another interesting thing about that experience as I recorded that. But I'll let Barry kind of talk about kind of just having close encounters with him that way. That's something that's not that unusual for us, but just that experience that I had as far as them touching me and running by, that was kind of it. That was an honor for me to have experienced that.
And Barry, what about going back to what you said? You had probably one of the most astounding experiences with one of these beings, or maybe several. I got that wrong, but can you tell us any details? Did you get a message of some kind? What happened?
Let's see. There's several that come to mind, but I'll share this one. We hadn't been in an area for probably 6 months, and we finally decided to go in that area. And when we did, right at the entrance, we were, I don't want to say confronted, or maybe that is the right word, but we had four of them standing about 40 yards from the entrance as we walked up into Hard Knocks. And that was eye-opening, for anybody, even as I've had several. They stood there, and I had two other team members with me, and I have to admit, I was a little shocked by that, but it was what I felt, I don't know if I'm still answering the question of counting coup, but they were standing there, and it was almost like we all felt this feeling of, hey guys, where you been? It was almost like they missed us.
No kidding.
Yeah, there was four standing 40 yards from us, the entrance, and it was kind of a setup for the juvenile. As we all look back on that encounter. These guys were all different height based on their eye shine. I mean, you could tell there had to be a alpha male, maybe the female, and maybe a couple of juveniles, medium-sized teenagers, if you will. But as they were staring at us, I started to speak to them. In fact, I think I started praying, and my prayer turned into just, talking in general. And while I was doing that, about 20 minutes went by, a juvenile crawled down the branch to the left of me, which was about 6 feet from me at the time. And I started to maybe move a little bit. And what was happening while I was talking, looking straight north to the west of me, maybe 2-3 foot juvenile was crawling down the branch with real small eye shine. It was almost cute. And it looked like a little monkey is what it looked like to me based on, the darkness and the eye shine that was protruding outward. But as I continued, being somewhat in a prayer and talking to the ones in front of me, because those are the ones that really, really, intrigued me and got my interest. As before that though, I didn't know the 3 foot or that one was crawling down until it caught my peripheral about 20-25 minutes in. Then I just turned and completely looked at it as I seen the eye shine. And at that time, it had to be 4 feet from me and slowly making its way down the branch.
And you didn't hear it? Did you hear it, or just peripheral vision?
No, I didn't hear it. I just saw peripheral vision with my 2 team members were probably 6 feet behind me, leaning back against the vehicle, and they witnessed everything. Probably in my opinion, one of the greatest stories never told. I plan on maybe doing a recreation of that experience, but I remember talking to them, and then I got this strong feeling as I turned to look at the juvenile a second time to my left, and I got this strong feeling that if I reached out and said, "Can I hold you?" it would have crawled in my arms, gentlemen. That was just incredible. In my mind, I kept thinking, "There's nobody going to believe this story." But I got 2 team members, and who will tell the same story. And here's a quote. One of my team members, and I was flattered by this. It's very, when you die, I think I'm gonna kick the dirt for you. You've done some amazing things, and that was kind of funny and sarcastic kind of way of her saying Barry in our journey. And again, I still can't believe I had that, and let alone I'm telling the story.
Definitely interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to ask you guys. You guys I'm curious. You guys leave out something like little gifting areas, as just show that you're good neighbors and such. And you do. What do you leave out for them? Peanut butter or chocolates or anything else like that? Or
I'll let Rich elaborate on that. I used to kind of, when I first started out, I thought that was important, but after a while, I think over the years we just established a relationship. Now it's really on, talking our language and showing respect. So I don't do it as much, but
gotcha. Right.
Sometimes I do. I don't know. Maybe Rich can elaborate a little more. I think Rich is more into that part of it.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, over the years, that has been something. If we're having like a group of people that we're going out with or something, a lot of times I'll get some apples, and I've gotten like a honeycomb, an actual honeycomb of the honey. It's something that I know that I think they'll recognize, that they'd be interested in eating, and it's a way to kind of honor them, to show respect. I know they feel very respected with berries around, but sometimes if we're bringing people in that they don't know, I think it's just kind of giving them a gift like that, like thank you, is just a little something extra. We don't typically need to do that or have to, but sometimes I'll bring apples with me, and I brought some apples and some honeycomb before. And we used to leave apples more. I used to string apples up and that sort of thing, but they don't need anything from us in particular. So it's just really, if you want to, give them something as far as a respect. I know when we've camped out, we've left, if we had some brats out or something that we didn't eat, we'll leave them out on a plate or something for them. Just again, we're here, we're in your land, and we want we want to leave something for you. We got a little something to leave. So, that's typically what we're doing. We're not actively doing it in a way that, like baiting or anything like that. This is more of just a respect kind of situation is what it is.
And you don't leave cameras on the gifting site. You don't do anything like that. No cameras.
No, that's, it's funny about cameras because, a long time ago, I realized that you put a camera up, they're going to kind of back away.
Yeah.
So I had been in areas where I didn't necessarily want them coming in on my tent while I'm sleeping at night. So I would put a camera on my tent, knowing full well they're not going to come up to my tent.
So we've done that too.
But if you're there, if you want that interaction, cameras aren't going to help the process. You're better off just leaving those down and not having them. If you want to, have areas where you can have cameras. They're going to know by and large when you set them up. So, occasionally you can get lucky, just like anything. You catch something off guard, but by and large, we don't want to upset them. We don't want to put them in a situation that we feel like we're disrespectful if we're going to put a camera.
Yeah.
And so we're pretty careful with that. And being respectful and spiritual sense with us is like our number one things we want to do when we're out there with Sea Tonga.
That being said, it's like obviously nobody seems to get lucky with a motion sensor camera, trail cam, or camera trap for that matter. What does that mean? Can they see infrared? Can they see the motion sensor beams or something coming from these things? What's your theory on that?
I think they can see that. I think they see the infrared, and a lot of they just have such a more heightened senses than we do in nature. They're much more aware of the environment than we are. We're fairly oblivious to what's going on around us, unless it hits us over the head most of the time. So they are very, innately able to cue into something different. They might be able to hear or smell things, and just sense that they're there. And there's seeing the infrared is obvious. It could be an obvious sign of that too. But, you're not going to hide a whole lot from them. That's not going to happen. If you think you can fool them, you're sadly mistaken. You're only having those interactions on their terms because they want to come see you. So being respectful is absolutely important to continue those interactions and to have stuff like Barry's experience. That he's built that up for years, so they know those families there know. I mean, I absolutely believe if he would have reached out and that child went into his arms, that they would have been okay with that.
Yeah,
they would have been fine with that. So I think that's the level that Barry is at, and I think that's significant to have that kind of trust when you're in the woods in their home with them.
One other question, obviously, I think their numbers are obviously getting either rebounding or increasing. Richard, you also had some sort of theory on plague and what different kinds of contagions, considering we just came out of the COVID scare and everything, so on and so forth. You might want to shed some light on that.
Yeah, that's something that I had talked about. One of the things we've always done with expeditions when we were doing these sort of expeditions with red squatching is we would talk their experiences, and I've had a lot of theories over the years, and one of the things that made sense to me was, so I presented this early on, maybe like 2014 or something like that, at one of our expeditions, and I believe that there was two epochs essentially that occurred, and one of them happened 500 years ago here in the Americas, and it was the smallpox. And when the smallpox affected a large swath of the Native American population, 80 to 90% of the people, died because of these disease contagions. And I believe that also affected either the behavior or the interactions or the actual physical population of these hominids also. You have to remember all of the Native American people have names for these hominids, and that interaction were happening with these tribes. And so they were closely interacting and doing things. They would come in contact with each other. So a disease contagion absolutely would affect not only the Native American people, but also the interactions with these hominids. I saw the same thing happen when I was doing this research in Europe with the Black Plague. And we saw that before the plague, there were churches in Europe, and they would have pencil drawings, and they would have different types of images on churches, stone images of wood mooses of these hominids. And, one of the early binomial nomenclature classifications had the Homo troglodyte was there, and that was 500 years ago that these things were talked about. After the plague, just like after what we saw, which was again about 500 years ago, it almost took place simultaneously in Europe as it happened in the Americas here with the Native American people. There was a epoch of before and after. And before that, there were all these names. In Europe, you had the wood moose, you had the Bazajuan, you had in France, which was the forest king. You had all these names. You had Fight in the Forest in Germany that was pencil drawing of a wood moose fighting knights. You see these drawings. It was common. It was very common in European culture and Native American culture. And then after these epochs of contagions, which in Europe there's 50 million people died, and we don't know what the entire population of the Native Americans were, but probably easily was that also in America. So it was just devastating to populations. So that created either a separation of the people through their interaction, or it dwindled the population of these hominids, or a little bit of both. And I call that the hominid contagion theory. And I think that represents the best way to make sense of why there was folklore after, and why we had so much history prior to these epoch contagions. And then afterwards, it was kind of relegated to a folklore status in both continents. And I think that explains a lot of that. So thanks for asking about that. Barry talks about that with the Omaha people, their interactions of trade, and that this is a reconnection to them also. So I think that there's something to that. I think it did shape some of those interactions. And I think today in modern times, it's interesting that we had COVID, because I proposed this years before the COVID experience. But the COVID has kind of shaped some of that behavior again, I think. But we've gotten these relationships together. We've weathered that. But I think originally, I know people weren't getting out and being able to do some of this. So I was kind of cognizant of that during COVID, how that's going to affect the behaviors. And there's some things that might come out of that we don't even know yet, that will be significant for us in the long run. So thanks for asking that. That is interesting. And I know Barry, he has an understanding of that also, just historically with the Omaha people.
The other thing I was going to touch on there, Richard, was DNA studies. Like, have you guys done anything like eDNA collections or collecting pairs? Submitted any samples?
We've looked at doing stuff like that. We set up a few years ago, it was a Bigfoot Odyssey, Barry, when we set up those sticky traps for hair. And, we looked into doing that, because I had put out a theory about this sub-Saharan Africa Nuke 7E, and we've looked at that sort of side of this, and I do think there's a lot of validity to that. But there's science is coming along. If look at what's going on with Savante Pablo, who is a paleo genome. He won the Nobel Prize for paleo genome study, which is a new area of study. He came up with the Neanderthal and Denisovian just through bone. So there's things that could come from this in the future. And I think the evidence at some point will allow the story to be told when that time comes. But there's a lot to be said about just doing environmental DNA. I think there's a lot of studies that could be done with that. There's no functional way to do it right now. Nobody has these kids. Nobody's able to go out and do that. We don't have any real funding to do that sort of thing. So most stuff comes down to money, and you could propose something, but unless you got the dollars, you're just not going to make it happen. So, but I do think that will be the future of this will be environmental DNA as far as tracking them and studying them,
Yeah.
But the first thing has to come is to prove their existence before you get that funding. So there'll be things, in the future, who knows what holds, but this is a great time to be doing this sort of research. And someone like Barry, he gets out almost every day, and I can't speak for Barry on this, but he is out interacting with them all the time. I don't think a week goes by without Barry having somebody contact him and being out there. And when he talks about boots on the ground, it's Barry is there and available to interact with them and go out and spend time with that. And I think it is going to be more of a cultural, when we talked about these experiences, it's more of a cultural anthropology, more of a study of them as a people. And the spirituality side of this is absolutely what red squatching has excelled at. And that's kind of what we're known for. And I think that bridges that gap, that relationship, that so many other people lack in their experiences.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, the Muke 7E. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I was going to ask. I said that.
That is something. Yeah, I did identify that as an outlier in an emergent hominid theory that I proposed, and that was through research that I had done extended from the contagion theory. Zana, who was in Georgia of Russia, and that tied in Dr. Igor Burtsev. They had done a study on the DNA that they had taken from the skull of Zana and from her relative Quit, her son. And it was 100% sub-Saharan Africa. This was Dr. Sykes from Oxford University. And I had come across a study about 5 years after that study came out of sub-Saharan Africa, and this Muke 7E was an outlier. That there was an introgression similar to Neanderthal and to Denisovian, but it was just in sub-Saharan African people. And that, when I connected the Sykes study to Zana and to this study, Muke 7E became to me, a genetic marker that we could use. I absolutely believe that's related to these beings. I think it's in your mucus system when you spit and do your DNA. If you've ever done that,
right?
Muke 7 is inherent in all Homo sapiens. Well, Muke 7E is a subvariant of that. And it's only in this population through this integration of an ancient hominid. But it was present in modern times, I believe, in Zana. And I think that's the outlier that we're getting through her modern DNA that was traced back to sub-Saharan Africa. So I use that as a marker. I believe it will be in the future when we do more studies like this. And it'll be something that you could use if you're in a stream, if you're testing water in a stream, like the Missouri River near some of the streams that run through Black Elk Creek or something, and Blackbird Creek that runs through the Omaha Res. You could test that water, and you would be positive for Muke 7E. You would know that they're there, that they're in that population. So you could do things with that, with algorithms. So that's kind of the future. We may be 20 years away from that, 10 years, I don't know. But other things have to come to fruition first. I think there's going to be things happen in the future that are going to be big for the whole community at large in the world of what these hominids are. I'm excited for the future of everybody in this field. I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, a lot of this is very fascinating. The stuff we're all learning together, I guess. Some of these paranormal abilities, even the spiritual connections, mind speak. Wow, like what are these beings? What are they? How do they do this? That's a great mystery.
Yeah, I think they're ancient. They're an ancient being. I think they're here before us. Barry has a pretty good understanding of what he believes also, and I believe the same as him. But they're an ancient being. They've been around a long time. And we've been around them, and we've had this kind of relationship with them over time. And like what Barry's doing with the res watching, it's a reconnection. It's absolutely fascinating times to be doing this. We always have a great time when we get together. We love to get out and do these things together. Barry and Dee, I call them my brothers. I love them. They're my family. We've done some great things. And the other thing is we wanted to talk to you guys about, I'll let Barry talk about this, is the Sea Tonga movie that's out right now. I don't know if you can get it in Canada, but Barry, maybe you could share with them a little bit about the movie that just came out.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you guys that. Yeah, I checked it out on Amazon now. But yeah, tell us about the movie. We got a little clip here we'll play. But
what's it called? Sea Tonga?
Yeah, called Sea Tonga, Spirit, Sea Tonga, Bigfoot, Spirits and Faith on Amazon Prime. If any man lack wisdom, let him ask, and upbraideth not, and the truth will be given. Faith is like a muscle. You have to build it, man. You have to build upon it. They chose who they wanted to interact with.
Let us know that you're here any way you want to. Man, I'm shaking, dude.
And I guess I'm blessed, to be able to have had that experience.
Someone poked me in the back? Yeah. I did.
Here's what I know. Now what's freaking me out is I saw a lot of lights. I didn't just see the two pairs. There was so many lights that I was like, it just has to be houses, because that's too many lights.
I thought maybe you were shuffling here and Terry was there, and then I took my hood off. Literally, someone was walking right down in there.
Really intelligent beings. They knew who maybe had the truth.
It's compassion for our people is what it is that keeps us going.
Okay. I really started to feel something, and I thought, this is where it's at.
Did a partnership, or we came to an agreement with this group called Outcast Paranormal. Actually, we had three companies kind of put on the dog and pony show for us, and it was really close. I mean, we thought there was some quality production crews there that came to our res, and it was by a close criteria or judgment, we went with Outcast Paranormal. They were based, I think the company was based out of Florida. One of them was, I can't even remember his full name, Ryan Galemska, but his code name was RPG. He was a Finding Bigfoot producer. He was on the show.
We recognize
Finding Bigfoot. Yeah. And so that was really neat to meet those guys. They to us, they just kind of had more, maybe if I could say it, more clout, and just kind of came off with a more impressive resume, so to speak, and with more experience. So they won us over, and I just thought they did an outstanding job. It was a cross, what I would call a cross between two worlds, because I don't believe you can just go squatching without experiencing the paranormal. I know that it goes hand in hand, and so that was kind of maybe the objective was to cross both worlds. Not only that, but maybe the spiritual side. So I really loved how they kind of crossed both worlds, and what I really loved about it was was the equipment they had. That was just mind blowing. I mean, there was some answers in there that blew me away. There's some things that we thought nobody knew. That darn machine they had, I'm not sure what it was called, but that thing had answered some questions that were far beyond what we thought, it could do. That was very interesting, to say the least.
Was it a voice box of some kind that picked up?
A voice box that had told them some things that we knew, that we were keeping under our lid, keeping tight-lipped about.
Really?
So that blew me away right there.
Project OverWatch. Uniting forces. 3 Sasquatch research groups joined together to fundraise for thermal imaging drones. For years we've been scouring the woods for evidence and analyzing data to uncover the truth and gather information about Sasquatches. But we have always faced some major challenges, as Sasquatches are incredibly elusive creatures, and they sometimes are difficult to spot in the dark or in thick foliage, but not impossible. However, our methods have proven successful in bringing them in, and having thermal eyes in the sky will play a key role. That's why we need the latest technology to aid our ground crews in their surveillance operations. Ontario Sasquatch, Hastings County Sasquatch, and Upper Canada Sasquatch who have joined forces to purchase 3 thermal imaging drones. As Ontario is 1.5 times larger than the state of Texas in landmass, we plan to base these assets in 3 key locations in Ontario where we have identified hotspot investigation areas, and will provide quick deployment opportunities without having to travel long distances. Our goal is to provide both ground support for surveillance operations and provide overwatch on our night operations teams. These drones are equipped with both state-of-the-art thermal imaging and visible light spectrum cameras which can detect heat signatures from up to 200 meters away, making them ideal for spotting Sasquatches on the move. They'll provide us with the critical intel we need to plan and execute our missions, along with high-lumen searchlights to illuminate subjects and target species and capture video evidence with conventional video cameras from above. We're launching a crowdfunding blitz on podcasts, video and social media platforms to raise $50,000 to support this mission. We are asking for your help to make Project Overwatch happen. This project will move forward and will occur. We will not be deterred by the opinions of naysayers and self-proclaimed experts that have produced nothing new to date. Expertise is important, but it is not the only factor in determining the success of this project. Our team members have a unique perspective, approach, and methods that we believe sets us apart from others in the field. We invite you to play a part of making history with your contribution. No matter what amount you pledge, large or small, it will make Project Overwatch a reality. Help us unleash the power of technology in Sasquatch research. See the links below on how you can help. Thank you for your support.
So that's interesting that you're getting the same type of responses through the voice box. I've seen these things used in other paranormal investigations with ghosts and stuff like that. Am I getting it right? Is it the same type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to get one of those.
What about EMF meters? Got a couple of those units kicking around, and we're going to probably take it out on the next expedition. Ron Moorhead, we interviewed him a couple months ago regarding, they can change their frequencies. So generally that should be able to be picked up on some sort of EMF meter of some sort.
Oh yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, if I'm not real big, proponent of that, or I prefer to use that as my first choice, because obviously that's paranormal stuff, that's paranormal equipment. But I will say this though, that we had just about if you get the opportunity to watch that, you'll see just about every device out there they use. And so a lot of those, one time he had a magnetic, whatever it's called, and he asked it to go off like they do on the other paranormal shows, and boy, everything was going off like crazy. We had them everywhere in one of the old worn down houses. And again, I hope you gentlemen get to watch that someday.
Oh, we will. We'll figure it a way. I got one more question for you guys. I was going to ask. We've had several reports where, credible witnesses would say they'd be walking down a trail and Satonga, Sasquatch, Bigfoot would appear in front of them and just sort of dematerialize right on the trail. Have you guys had any reports on the reserve out there?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, Rich, I apologize if I cut in front of you, Rich.
Go for it.
Well, one time, our beloved brother, Terry Pedraza, he was sitting on the back end of the tailgate, or the gate of his truck. And I had started walking towards, I was going live. So I was walking toward the timberline, which is about 30 yards from Terry. I was walking south. He was sitting on the tailgate. And I said, wait a minute. I said, Terry, I can't do this and be filming. So I as I was walking toward, the tree line, the timber, and I must have, basically fooled this mist of a sitonga, because as I got halfway over, I turned around and said, no, I'm going to let Terry film. He likes to talk, So I turned around, kind of did, as you step and you turn around, almost like a military maneuver. So I think I kind of confused them, and this was probably, and I think I spend more time talking about this little encounter than I do any of the others that were just incredible. But one was actually hovering over Terry while he was sitting there smoking a cigarette. I mean, it was still on the ground, but on his right side of the tailgate. And I swear to God, it was a dark, white, clouded, thick cloud, basically. I don't want to say mist. Well, maybe that's what it was too, but it was thick. And it was almost, I don't want to say it looked like the doughboy, but the outline was of a sitonga.
Very interesting.
And I bet it was about 9 feet tall, but he was actually looking right over Terry on his right side, looking down at him, at his phone or his cigarette. And when I turned, it didn't realize I was walking toward them again. So I was about 25 yards from him. And as I was walking towards him, I could see this cloud, this cloud-like figure. As I got closer, it actually lifted its head, and it didn't have any physical, what I would call physical attributes. Its eyes were kind of blank, like you could see through it, but it had the eyes, it had everything, the figure of a sitonga. So as it was looking down at Terry, it noticed I was coming, and it lifted its head to look up at me like, oh shit, he's coming. And it looked up. It looked down at Terry and like it said, hey buddy, I gotta go, man. So it pulled itself back, turned, twisted its upward torso in a cloud. It wasn't physical by no means. So it turned to its right and took 2 steps and just, do I want to say dissipated? Kind of went into a mist and just disappeared. That was pretty cool, man. And I remember, wow, Terry, and he was just like, what? I said, man, you ain't gonna believe what I just saw hovering over you. And to this day, man, I still think that was pretty cool, man. So anyway, guys, that was one of my many experiences with that kind of figure.
That's amazing. It almost reminds me of the reports of a predator type being from the movie Predator with Schwarzenegger. That type of mirror, almost like an image, see-through. You can see it, but you can't. If it stands still, you definitely can't see. But if it moves, you can. But this is more misty. Sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah, it wasn't I heard it called shimmer. It wasn't the shimmer. I've seen plenty of those. Okay. This here was a cloud. It was like a Michelin tire figure. But more of a sitonga figure. Now that blew my mind, fellas. I've seen their eye shine twist inside their eye socket. I've seen some amazing things, but that cloud, hovering over Terry that time, that was just mind-boggling to me.
Interesting. You're in the company of witnesses. We're not believers, but we're knowers. We've had several encounters ourselves, and balls of light. That's another question I was going to ask you guys. Balls of almost like plasma balls. We've seen these like floating in between trees. And
could that be confused with the eye glow?
No,
or is it different? It's just.
I mean, like the actual balls of light. I don't know if you guys have seen it or had reports of it on the reserve down there.
Oh man, I've had several encounters with those. So it's about the ones I've seen were volleyball size.
Yeah.
And more of a white, or I think one of them was even a light kind of a yellowish. It was a little bit yellowish, but yeah, just floating in the air. And then they would, I remember one in particular, it appeared, just showed up, like appeared, and it was more basketball size. But then I remember watching it, me and Linda Joe, another team member, then all of a sudden what was really cool about it is it made this noise, because I remember it like it popped, you know, and then it went, whoa. I could hear that noise. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, and to me, it was almost angelic. It was like it was a good feeling, you know, like it was heavenly. That's what was cool about that for me.
Wow.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got the same sort of vibe there too. It's like I was more puzzled when the first time I seen that, and then it take off and it go through a grove of pine trees and just steered its way around the trees, almost like it knew where it was going.
Yeah.
Just another mystery we got to try and figure out, Dave, someday.
Yeah.
Is it controlled? It must. It's going to turn in and around trees and avoid solid objects.
Richard, we have to ask you about you sitting in the tent and you had a recorder going in your tent.
Yeah. Are you talking about we had one peek in at us?
Yeah. Let's hear a little story on that one. We talked earlier about this.
Yeah, Barry and I were in activity, and this was at Camp Hard Knocks there. I was there by myself, and Barry was getting ready to come up a little later. So I had, when you talk about like EMS experience, I had my radio there, and I had radioed to Barry back and forth, and we had been communicating, and he was on his way back, but there was one walking around my tent, and the actual radio, you could hear static in my radio. It was getting real staticky. And so I knew there was something. And we've had cameras lose all their power, that whole thing. You know, so it's very common to have these kind of disruptions. I've used my FLIR, and we've gotten flashes of light, that sort of thing with the FLIR. So had those kind of experiences quite often. But that night in our tent, we had the alpha male came around, and when Barry got there, he had done wood knocks all around all four corners of our tent, where we had another couple tents there. And Barry, at that point was concerned. They were very loud. I recorded all this. And so we got out just to kind of say, hey, we don't want to have any problems with this. We don't want a tree get pushed over or anything. And we wound up going back to bed after that, and we had rocks thrown at the tent. But as we were kind of talking about it, just little rocks were getting thrown. We could hear it in the tent. Barry told me later that one had peeked through the rain fly and was right behind me. And he could tell that it was peeking in at us. And so, we just had a ton of crazy experiences that have been amazing things to happen to us. And then we did go back to bed after that, because it was like 5. We wanted to get another hour of sleep. And the rest of the morning, they threw little pebbles at our tent, because the lady that was next to us said he could hear them every time we snored. They would throw a pebble at the tent. So that was fun. That's always entertaining.
Well, that's awesome there.
Only thing I've had thrown at my tent when I'm camping is something from a chipmunk or something up in the tree above. What about your own websites? Do you guys want to rattle off your own websites there, or anything that people that are listening to this can go and visit? And of course, we'll put the links below as well.
Yeah, I have my website, the Nox Gigas Study, and anybody can go to that. They just can Google NOX GIGAS Gigas, Nox Gigas Study, and that's the repository for all the research I've done over the years. And there's a ton of res squatching that we've done up on the Omaha res. And Barry, just speaking for him, he's got a res squatching homepage on Facebook, and you got to join that. That's a private group, but you talk about activity. Every week there's stuff going on there that Barry does live feeds So if you're not listening to Red Squatching or not on Red Squatching, you're missing the real story, because he's got tons of things going on all the time. So if you're on Facebook, join Facebook and join Red Squatching research there. It's just amazing. That's where everything Barry's doing is on.
Yeah, and you guys are based down in Nebraska.
Yes. Yep. We're here in Nebraska.
I was going to bring my surfboard down. How's the surfing down there? I'm sure you
Not
heard
a whole
that.
lot of surfing here.
What kind of surfing are you talking?
It can be done. If the winds are high enough, I'm sure you could. There's a lake out there.
Hey guys, sorry, I had to step away for a little bit.
Oh, that's okay.
Very
Well, so Res Squatching, is there a YouTube page for that, or is that just on Facebook?
Yeah, that's just on Facebook. Red Squatching Research Community is the actual name. It's a private page, so you have to request to join.
I'll do that.
Again, it's the majority of what we're constantly doing on a weekly basis. I mean, we try to post every day. I got some people out in the field. Brother Derek's out in the field every day. I think that's one of the cutting edge things we do. And we realize that, we're going to stay the number one group in the world. We have to be out there more than everybody else. That's just kind of one of our goals that we set for ourselves. And so we post about every day, and it's always, very interesting stuff. So please go to Red Squatching Research Community, join. We'd love to have you join our page.
I'm a member.
I'm going to click it as soon as I get home.
Do you guys take people out on expeditions out on the res at all?
Yeah, we did about, I would say, 6 or 7 in a row last year. We just got done with one. And I think at this point we're kind of reevaluating ourselves. We'll have to see if there's more of a demand for that. Right now, I'm just not feeling it as a group. Some of our priorities are based on maybe a different direction we're headed. So we'll keep you posted.
Okay.
We're always kind of changing things up and trying to do the things that are important. And obviously meeting the need of our audience, always trying different strategies, and it's just been a lot of fun. I think if I could say something again, a profound statement, I think that at some point you're going to want to hang around, because as I've stated earlier, and I hope this doesn't get taken the wrong way, but we are closer to the truth than you know. That's kind of been my latest motto.
I hope so.
I think you're right.
Oh,
well, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you guys for joining us, and
yeah,
a couple of crazy Canadians out here.
Yeah,
I think Barry was a little afraid of us at first.
No, hey, I enjoyed it, guys. That was good. I appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Next time you're up in this neck of the woods, come visit our igloos, and
if we're down there, we'll visit the beaches and the surfing there.
And we'll take you on Lake Ontario seal hunt.
Better chance at salmon.
Hey, fellas, real quick before we end, I want to give a shout out to a very good friend of mine up there. He's a brother, Drew Becker. He's up there in Ontario.
I think
he's
I know
a horseshoe player.
You know him?
Drew Becker?
Yeah.
No.
Everybody knows
him. Yeah, he's your best horseshoe player. I think he's Canadian's national champion.
Oh.
We'll have to look him up.
Yeah. If you see him, tell him I want to give him a shout out.
Okay.
And you bet.
All right. Like I said, you guys are invited up here too. Anytime you want, just give us a shout.
And if we ever get down that way, we'd really like to appreciate an invite out with you guys. That sounds profound.
You bet. You bet. We'd love to have you guys, Rich. We probably should take a trip up there.
Sure, we might impress you guys too.
We got all that.
Yeah,
that.
Absolutely.
We got legal Canadian weed up here now.
Oh man, Rich would love that.
Well, we understand, Rich, you're a Rush fan.
Yes, that's the other Canadian import.
Okay. Well, we'll play a little
or
outro.
Export.
We'll play a little outro.
It's funny. I used to work in a place where the owner of the company was good friends with Geddy Lee, and I think I told you that before when we talked. And I've been in the room with him a couple of times. Of course, I didn't say anything to Geddy. Yeah, it was kind of neat seeing the man just walking around getting his racket strung at the club or something like that. That's all. But we love Rush too up here.
All right, gents. That
Very
being
cool.
said, a pleasure talking to you guys. Salutes,
You bet. Likewise.
hats off to you guys, and
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Yeah, we're going to be definitely following you a lot more than we have in the past. This is amazing. Thank you very much.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
We'll talk to you later.
all right,
you.
man. Thanks for having us.
Hastings County Sasquatch.
Could one of us sing it?
Who'd you have in mind?